Today I'm here to talk about this topic with a good friend of mine, AK the King, who is an upcoming artist from Columbus, Ohio. As you know, I enjoy directing, producing, and editing rap music videos. Over the years, I have heard many negative comments about the genre that is only about guns, violence, and sex, and doesn't say anything or mean anything to anyone. What do you think about that?
What I think about that is true to an extent, and sometimes, most of the time, actually, just people trying to express themselves. And there's like two groups of people, man. There's people that make music just because they want to sound lit and just because they're trying to enjoy themselves, and it's people that make music because of how it inspires them and because they actually want to tell a story, and they just want to like be as authentic as possible. Like I said, it's two sides. The people that want to talk about guns, drugs, and violence, sometimes that is their reality, you feel me? But just people have generalized it and made it seem like, that's all hip-hop is about. Sometimes that is people's truth, and sometimes that's not what all it is to rap. Like, there are people that talk about substantial shit when, making their music, so I don't think it's true, like, 100%, you feel me?
People in my life, yeah, they only just a couple. You don't understand that we've been through the struggle. Fuck a silver spoon, yeah, we came up on the hustle. AK the King, I'm a piece to the puzzle. Let me say it now, mama help me, cause I can't breathe, don't let them take my soul. Mama help me, cause I can't breathe, don't let them take my soul.
So I like to use the term lyrical narrative to tell a story. What is your narrative? How does your lyrics tell your story?
So my narrative is basically just, like I said in the first question, me documenting my life and how I've always been underrated and just underlooked, and how sometimes that's all the motivation somebody needs. But like I said, people are different, but that's my narrative, coming from a place where, nobody appreciated my music and nobody appreciated my sound, and how I had to work for that shit myself. Like, no handouts, and we still in the beginning process. But it's just honestly straightforward, man. Like, I really don't say anything I never done. There's a term like, capping your rap. You can't cap in your rap because people gonna feel that shit and they gonna know. They gonna like see right through you. So my lyrics are just really straightforward when they tell my story, and I feel like it's really understandable.
So I read this article yesterday by Sean McCollum titled Hip Hop, A Culture of Vision and Voice. And it quoted, "Hip hop is a way of seeing, celebrating, experiencing, understanding, confronting, and making a statement on life and the world. Basically, it is a way of living a culture." Do you think this is true? And what are your thoughts on this?
I think this is 100% true. Like I said in my previous question, we just talking about how we live and how we came up, and just talking about speaking on our lives through the music. So that's literally the definition of culture, is the way of life and how we were brought up. So it definitely is making a statement and a way of living.
Is there a song or a group of lyrics you are most proud of that makes a statement or highlights your feelings, that speaks to something bigger than you?
So at the beginning of my song Niggas with Young Saya, I say, somebody showed me where the target on my back at. Why they treating on my brothers like we lab rats? Like, that's what it feels like most of the time, how we go outside. Supposed to feel safe by the cops, but we feel like we're being targets, you feel me? We feel like we all got targets on our back just because of the color of our skin. And it could be true, but statistics just show differently, and that's why we protesting, you feel me? So definitely bigger than me, so.
Somebody show me where the target on my back at. Why they killing on my brothers like we lab rats? Light-skinned niggas feeling gray cause they half black. I got you, brother, you ain't gotta worry. Listen, Black Lives Matter, you gon' give a fuck. Teach it to the future generation, we not giving up. This for my people like I'm Joey, I ain't bad yet. It's fuck 12 till I'm resting in my casket. You cannot silence the prodigy, nigga, this was the prophecy. Screaming fuck your apology, cause it's more than that. I've been labeled a wannabe cause I'm rapping so consciously, and I'm lacking in modesty like a quarterback.
The same article discusses how rap is this generation's voice of poetry, and like the social activists of the 70s like Martin Luther King, James Baldwin, and Malcolm X, your songs reflect what is and has been happening around us for the last few years. Do you agree with this idea?
I agree with this idea because I made a song about racism and some of the past killings that's happened with police brutality. The name of the song is Niggas, and it's featuring another local artist, Columbus, Ohio, Young Saya. And we just talked about police brutality and the social injustices that's been going on with black people, just trying to make our voices heard. So yeah, I do agree with that.
Cause I can't breathe, don't let them take my soul.
Mama help me cause I can't breathe, don't let them take my soul.
Mama help me,
yeah, don't let them take me. Yeah, look, because we wanna be free, and we balling up our fists cause we know Martin had a dream. Had us picking up that cotton, bodies hanging from the trees. All we ever had was hope, we pray to God that we believe. Had to break off all the chains cause we ain't never get it.
Today I'm here with another local artist from Columbus, Ohio, Young Saya. Over the years, I have heard many negative comments about the genre that is only about guns, violence, and sex, and doesn't say anything or mean anything to anyone. What are your thoughts about that?
I think, like, in hip-hop and in rap, you have so many different pockets, you feel me? And there's people that's really, like, coming from the streets, you know what I'm saying? People that really do live that life. So I'm not just gonna, brush that off and act like, their experiences are irrelevant. Because everybody has their own past, but I do think the way the drugs, the sex, and the guns, the violence has taken over the media. Like, you got these kids out here thinking it's lame, to not be in a gang or not be hard or this, that, and the other. So it's just the way that we promote and uplift violence and things that are really damaging our kids. So but then again, I have a respect for people who do talk about their own life experiences.
I like to use the term lyrical narrative to tell a story. What is your narrative and how does your lyrics tell your story?
Yeah, so I think my narrative is just, now I've even shifted in my music. I'm not cussing in my songs anymore. So I think my whole narrative is just to speak from the heart, you know what I'm saying? At first, I make my music for myself before anybody else. So, my music is just a direct reflection of my thoughts and just how I feel inside. So, so with doing that, I want my image to be, I want my music, I want everybody to be able to listen to my music, which is why I said I'm making it clean from here on out. So it's I want church people to hear my music. I want the kids to be able to listen to my music, even elderly people, I just want everybody to relate to my music. So, yeah.
Left to right, we getting shot, and we praying that it stops. We supposed to be protected, but we scared of quarter ops. Need to pass on what was taught and the issues that was fought, because they try to take reality and put it in the box. On Martin, the bullets was darting. Our life ain't an option, cause he was trying to get some candy or something. But I guess it was cool. Now the cops wasn't fronting, because the case got dragged and they ain't charging with nothing. A lot of these cops, they get to shooting, then they try to play the victim. But they ain't really worried, cause they covered by the system. They know I'm speaking facts, and yeah, they know I'm speaking wisdom. They take the power that they have and try to hide it in a pistol. Look.
So I read this article the other day by Sean McCollum titled Hip Hop, A Culture of Vision and Voice. And it quoted, "Hip hop is a way of seeing, celebrating, experiencing, understanding, confronting, and making a statement on life and the world. Basically, it is a way of living a culture." Do you think this is true?
Yeah, I definitely do, especially with the culture part. Hip hop is a big part of our culture. Specifically, just in black culture and everything. You just see it in the media, the way that people dress is geared towards how these artists express themselves in the way that they dress. Just hip hop, different slang comes straight from hip hop. So I think hip hop definitely is, running the culture. And with hip hop too, just the art in itself, I'm just obsessed with it because if you look at where it was in 1990s and you look at where it is now, there's just so many different pockets. And I just feel like in music, you can never tell anybody how to sound. Music is an expression of how you want to make your own stuff sound. So there's no rules, there's no limitations. And I just like how creative music is now. I think now you see a lot more songs lack substance, but at the same time, there's a whole bunch of different pockets, and people just are expressing themselves and experimenting in music, and I think it's dope.
That same article discusses how rap is this generation's voice of poetry, and like the social activists of the 70s like Martin Luther King, James Baldwin, and Malcolm X, your songs reflect this and what has been happening around us for the last few years. Do you agree with this idea?
Yeah, I definitely do agree with this idea. The world has changed a lot, but there's still you're never gonna cure racism. You're never gonna cure the way black people are viewed. You're never gonna cure mothers and fathers having to tell their children they have to walk differently. in this society. You're never gonna be able to get away from that. But I definitely do think that my songs are a reflection of what is going on.
Is there a song or a group of lyrics that you are most proud of and that makes a statement or highlights your feelings that speaks to something bigger than you?
Yeah, so I think God's Eyes is a song that speaks to more than just me. I feel like in God's eyes, I talk about everybody, because I say we're all the same in God's eyes. Because at the end of the day, you're like I said, you have a lot of social injustice going on and a lot of hate in the world going on. But at the end of the day, God looks at us all the same. And I'm a Christian and I'm strong in my beliefs, so God looks at us all the same, and we are to all treat each other equally and treat each other with respect, and that's what it's all about. So, in God's eyes, I just include that and really talk about how, we're all the same. Nobody's above anybody. Here in February, I'll be dropping just songs geared towards Black history and the social injustices taking place. So, so come February, people gonna see a lot more of that. So, yeah.
All these broken ties from angry eyes, Lord, don't let them come take my life. And even though we try, they won't realize that we're all the same in God's eyes. We'll be alright, we'll make it home.
Alright, Chance, that was awesome. Tell us a little bit more about your whole approach with this project. Like, where'd you start? Like, how'd you find these guys?
So I actually film music videos for them, and they're probably one of the 2 best artists in Columbus that use their platform and voices for what we're talking about in this. And yeah, I just think they're very well spoken, and they just have a lot of knowledge on what's going on, and I like that they don't just I like that they don't rap about just pointless stuff. I like that they can sing and use their voices for, stuff that's going on and to alert people.
Yeah, it seems like I like that you pointed out that, this idea of kind of activism through artistic expression, that's nothing new. That's been going on for a long time.
Right.
But also what's been going on for a long time is that most of this style of hip-hop's been underground. I mean, every now and again you get Public Enemy, like they were big for a while and they got their message, really through all pop culture. But for the most part, this stuff stays underground. Why do you think that is?
Right. I'm not too sure. I think, and that is a big thing about this type of music. That's why that's why I think the other side of rap is so big, because a lot of people like to hear that. I mean, it's cool to hear in the clubs and stuff, but I think that's why a lot of things get swept under the rug, the things that actually mean something and have a meaning. I'm not too sure. I think a lot of people just maybe like how it makes them move and stuff. Maybe people don't want to hear that type of stuff. I do think it's definitely coming back. I think it's making its way back up to mainstream. I think a lot more people are listening to, like J. Cole and people who actually use their voices for something. And so, yeah.
Cool. You mentioned that you did a couple music videos. Are people able to see that online somewhere?
Yeah, it's under Chance Lahota on YouTube.
All right, cool. Well, anything else before we let you go?
That's about all.
All right. Well, Chance, thanks for coming in.
Appreciate you.
We'll be right back with the next one. All right. Graham, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's good to be here.
So, tell me again, what's your project?
So, my project is almost like a spoken essay about this really niche game that's inspired a lot of the current indie games. Some of the most, well-known in these circles have all... it's like most of the creators, so we're talking Derek Yu, Edmund McMillan, they all kind of draw back to this text-based ASCII game, NetHack. So this was kind of like an essay about NetHack and about some of my feelings on it, about a little bit of the history of it and some of the decisions, and why some developers chose to leave some ideas behind from it and took some of them further. So yeah, it's basically just me talking to myself 12 minutes about an old video game. But
so people that might not be into old video games or kind of understand half the stuff you just said, like there's kind of a bigger thing with this, which is we were talking about this in class. Like, there's a lot of options in this game, right?
Yeah. So I go into that a little bit in the piece, but yeah, this game has like around 50 different actions that the player can take at any time. So every key on the keyboard is used more than once. And because of that, it's really hard for new people to get into it. But if someone has been playing this for a while, the amount of options and kind of creative expression that comes through that is, I haven't seen anything like that in any other game. So it's kind of sad that this philosophy has been left behind, but also nobody wants to sit around for like 40 hours and learn that, engraving magic words into the soil will, prevent monsters from attacking you. Like,
it's kind of a paralysis of choice, right? It's like, there's too much to. When you want to escape and relax, it's kind of hard to. Dive into. Okay.
I definitely feel like, while some people think games are kind of an escapist, relaxing thing, sometimes when you've had a very monotonous type of day or you're just bored, like it's really nice to just sink into something fully and become fully invested in it. So yeah.
All right, anything else before we jump into it?
No, I think we should let it speak for itself, because I don't want to keep covering things I already mentioned.
All right, yeah, we won't let you repeat yourself. We'll just come back at the end and talk a little more.
Cool.
Stories are an integral part of the human experience. Cautionary, fantastical, allegorical, or purely for fun, our fascination with stories is something that occupies a large place in our lives. Stories come in all shapes, sizes, subjects, and mediums. Some of the most engaging and rapidly growing ways to tell stories is through video games, but let me tell you about one of the greatest and most legendary games of all time. Games today can reach gargantuan sizes, with handcrafted quests and characters crafted with every detail in mind. Games that take hundreds of hours to beat, designed by thousands of people, and have massive file sizes. But what if the most intricate, rich, and rewarding games has been around for over 40 years? And what if this whole experience was smaller than the size of a picture taken with your smartphone camera? But first, a little history. Back long ago in the year 1980, Rogue was released, an entirely text-based ASCII game, part of the genealogy of fantasy role-playing games in the emerging world of computer gaming. The premise? You are a simple rogue. Your goal? Delve deep into the Dungeon of Doom and retrieve the Amulet of Yandor. In the stuffy dorm rooms and cramped apartments of the 1980s, this game was a hit to the tiny audience it managed to find. These fans did the one thing that is arguably the biggest compliment of any work of art. They made it bigger and better. Hack, literally just called Hack, a hack of Rogue, was finished in 1982 and was done by one person, adding all sorts of elements and balancing choices to make the game more playable, and this was a huge step for these types of roguelike games. Now, each of these games has been beaten and played and updated and downloaded, but just a few years later in 1987, NetHack was released. It had more of everything. More items, monsters, spells, scrolls, you name it. All of this game's tens of thousands of interactions were all packed into 3.4 megabytes, and it had its most recent update in March of 2020. So why is NetHack worth playing? Well, it has an overwhelming amount of content and nearly infinite complexity and potential for unique stories and interactions. For one to enjoy NetHack, you have to be ready to die. A lot. Most of the time, dying isn't because you were shot by an arrow or gored by an orc. It's drinking an unidentified potion and bursting into flames, which kept burning because you were standing on a patch of grass. It's not noticing your character is full and eating a corpse, only to choke and die. It's getting paralyzed by a floating eyeball and then getting nibbled to death by a newt. Every run is a chance to experiment with something new, try out a new strategy, use a new item. There's also the fact this game has over 50 different actions the player could do at any moment. In NetHack, nothing moves until you do, so when you take a step, everything else decides to take a step or do an action. Your actions can be attack, eat, throw, engrave, read, wear, put on, take off, check, kick, basically anything that you could think of. The problem is that every action is mapped to a different keybind, and this is one of the game's biggest downfalls to new players, but also its greatest strength to the most dedicated and creative veteran. This really is a game of the past, when elegant solutions to complex problems required intimate encyclopedic knowledge of a complex and abstract logic space. You really do feel like a hacker when you play this game, because every turn can take quite some time to assess the situation, check your inventory, and then find the keybind for the action that you wish to perform. You also have to account for any chance-based interactions to occur, of which this game is built entirely around chance and luck, for what the floors look like and what kind of monsters you're going to run into. But the game starts to reward your cunning. A NetHack player isn't a muscled hero that slashes through every monster, saves damsels, and is armed with a legendary blade from the start. A NetHack player is a trickster who sets traps, eats corpses, bends the rules, exploits niche monster attributes, and never, ever fights fair. However, there are some advantages to strength. Like most Dungeons and Dragons classes, what's on the tin is what they'll be good at, and NetHack has a lot of different roles to choose for your starting character. Wizards are good for firing spells and are wise, and barbarians are uncharismatic brutes that have innate poison resistance. Monks are fast and don't need to sleep but don't get much use out of conventional weapons. There's even a tourist with an expensive camera, a lot of money, and an obnoxious Hawaiian shirts, which shopkeepers will see and jack up their prices. So you can even change how you start playing this game based on your class and role. I love this level of customization so dearly, but I have to digress. So we have established that this game is infinitely complex in terms of its content, its execution, and even its interface. However, this weakness comes with the strength that, with a bit of patience and research, players can plan out their moves like a chess game and execute their actions with absolute precision. I admittedly have only made it about 5 floors deep in my best run of NetHack, overwhelmed by small enemies that I foolishly charged into while wearing unidentified armors and rings that probably sapped my strength. I am a god-awful NetHack player so far, but I see YouTube videos, old ones from 10 years ago, tutorials and guides and playthroughs with crackly lo-fi mics and the barest of editing skills, a raw, unfiltered presentation that's all but a dying art, intimate, not overproduced for what it is. And most of these playthroughs, guides, and filmed explorations into NetHack just stop. They get to part 4 or part 9 or sometimes only part 1 and just stop. There's simply too much stories with heroes that simply faded away. I think this is what makes NetHack really interesting, the reclusive and extremely isolatory nature of this game. The unrewarding, uncaring, infinite perils of the dungeon are just not well suited for the traditional format of making engaging and entertaining content for the internet. All to start over from the beginning from a silly mistake, a dumb technicality, or just plain bad luck. There's a lot going on here. There's too much going on here. Yet it calls, because I've dove into countless games like this, but those feel more focused, simple, achievable. You shoot the baddies, you move on to the next room. Everything is much more streamlined, clean. And most, just touching his squishy, beating red heart is enough to restore your strength. You don't have to wait for it to refill, or worrying about eating a comestible that may be tainted or cursed, or worry about the nutritional value of it before you go hungry again. But then, knowing that you can tin a cockatrice, a monster that'll turn you to stone, and leave it behind for a particularly nasty monster to eat to petrify them, that's just glorious. Even the food has such rich, deep mechanics. A small footnote worth adding, too, is the difference between a roguelike and a roguelite. Light like a diet version. A true roguelike is the exact same every time you play it. Exceptions are purely cosmetic character options, like you wear a hat. A roguelite has the player unlock features like modes, items, characters, weapons, or even new levels as they complete criteria in the game, such as collecting a certain amount of items or completing challenges or simply beating the game a certain amount of times. But NetHack has no unlockables, but it does have special messages that it lifts off if conditions are met at the end of a run or when you die, like being a vegan or pacifist. Of course, these can be used to create self-imposed challenges that make this head-spittingly complicated game even harder. But why? simply because it's there, I guess. This game makes me feel very lonely, philosophically, like an endless library that only I can visit, but every book is in a language that feels familiar, but I can't write it. I want to see all the interactions. I want to read all the text and feel the ups and downs of a successful run. I see indie game devs, the really good ones, the ones that care about telling a story and making things as a community and avoiding making things so large that they lose sight of the original goal. Role models, people I look up to, all reference this game as an inspiration. The levels of interactions, the glut of items, the joy of greed, the laughter of a silly death. The freedom not to have to play the same way every time, where odd, chance-based occurrences keep things feeling fresh while still familiar. Games like Spelunky, Indiana Jones meets Mario, meets NetHack, games like Binding of Isaac or Zelda meets body horror and childhood trauma, and NetHack. Games like Minecraft, where NetHack echoes and is called out to in the most popular game of all time. Derek Yu's book, simply called Spelunky, is one of my Bibles. He developed the game by himself. One key kernel of wisdom is making things immediately familiar, readable, and logical to the player, but leaving enough room for creative utility and secrets to uncover, as well as basic mechanics such as jumping and whipping objects having deeper properties than what first meets the eye. The inspiration from NetHack comes from the randomness and the sheer volume of interactions involving everything with everything else, from extremely broad to extremely specific. Okay, here's a fun bit from Spelunky. With a room that can spawn in the first levels, the mines, about a third of the time, the idol room. The first time a player discovers that taking the golden idol from the altar causes the world to shake and a giant Indiana Jones style boulder to come crashing down after them moments later is such a joy to experience. The sound, the visual effects, the knee-jerk reactions that could potentially save a player, that's just hilarious. Post it online, folks, we gotta laugh. And when the surprise wears off, our little explorer may be reduced to trails of big red gloppy blobs with a squish. But these idols and boulders spawn early enough where the player isn't losing more than 5 minutes of progress at most, and later on these traps change based on the environment, and more unique challenges to learn and overcome appear. But if the player manages to escape to the end of the level with an idol, or even a shop, they can cash it in for a healthy sum, and goddamn, money feels good. But NetHack is a much different beast. Let's say that a fountain spawns on an early floor, and drinking from this fountain has literally 14 different effects, with all but 2 having a 1 out of 30 chance of occurring. These range from summoning enemies to restoring a small amount of nutrition, or just poisoning you, or not doing anything at all. So the question is, why include it? If players are constantly gambling with their lives or interacting with something, God forbid they don't have the wiki open to be spoiled about what it does, why would this be here? Because it just simply is. Are we too spoiled by games making everything fun? Or is it just we crave tightly wound experiences where playing a game feels like a fluid dialogue between player and developer rather than fixing a car in ASCII? But yeah, of course, we want good visuals, music oozing with rhythm and charm. We want to be rewarded, not diluted and overstimulated. We don't want our time wasted because we learned just a tiny fraction of what something could do 8 minutes or even 8 hours into a run. But NetHack, the labyrinth, is still there. It beckons in its sheer scale and density. You're free, and it's well documented, and hypothetically gives you all the tools you need to conquer it, and all the time you need is provided, but still, who would care? That urge to dive deeper into a world that challenges you, that makes you feel welcome in its hostility, to escape into the bowels of discomfort, awkwardness, and defeat something that is obtuse and inarticulate to explain to anyone else. That feeling of retreading old stories, discovering the care and love put into something that simply isn't relevant anymore, that references media that isn't even part of our canon, even in nerd culture, part of an entirely different generation. Is this isolation a safety net, a desire for unique taste, or is it a calling out for anyone else to step up and engage with this? I can't tell you. Maybe a therapist could, but it's something I'm asking of anyone, or possibly the satisfaction of being the only one into something that's kind of objectively bad. Is that punk rock? I think it circles back to stories in your head, like dreams, half-formed, the details missing but the emotions there. The way a treasure chest full of exactly what you needed makes you exhale, your chest relax, the feeling of ease and immersion. The way it feels when a 1% chance of something happening occurs at just the right time, and you can play the game with much more freedom of choice. The way we can lose ourselves in stories, that feeling of challenge and familiarity, and rhythm, repetition, and chance. I've played games that are more fun than NetHack, and I've played games with other people that I've enjoyed more than NetHack. Games similar, and games different. Through my life, these pieces of software are a bigger part of a story of connectedness and comfort that I hope I can one day add to in a constructive way. I don't think I need to make a NetHack, and as I grow more, I don't think I should even make a Spelunky either. Maybe something totally different, or maybe I'm wrong and the allure of thousands upon thousands of items and interactions with monsters and mages fitting into the size of a selfie is what someone out there needs, just presented slightly differently. VR could even solve many of the problems NetHack has. Most of those actions and management systems could be workshopped, condensed, and made accessible conceptually using your hands in an afternoon with some friends and drinks. But that jumping off point of simply taking all of that and making it more accessible, why not create our own world with pieces of everything we love, just like those developers who sparked that love of the genre in me in the first place? I don't think I need to retrieve the amulet right now. At least not by myself. Thanks for listening. NetHack is available for free on its website.
So NetHack's available for free on the website, but should people play it?
I think that's for you to decide. Like, I spent 12 minutes talking about it, and I'm not going to tell you to do it or not, because I think I rattled off enough reasons why it's, like, really endearing and really, like, interesting, but it's kind of a pain in the ass to play, and I think people, like, would just get frustrated with it.
It really seems like you have a love-hate relationship with it.
I do, because it's so important to the history of, like, games and stuff, and it kind of emulates the feeling of playing, like, Dungeons and Dragons, but you don't need other people, which is almost kind of dangerous.
Yeah. And kind of, I don't know, the fun of D&D seems to be the other people. Right?
Yeah, but there's so many, like, little fringe edge cases or, like, unique lines of dialogue peppered in or, like, references to other things that it kind of still keeps you engaged with it when you hit that flow once you're, like, competent enough to just know what to do, but you still have to, like, look up, like, how to do it. Yeah, it just kind of, like, leads you down rabbit holes. Like, even just reading about the game, like, on the wiki where it has basically everything in the game and what it interacts with. Like, every entity has, like, a page. So, yeah, like, I do have a weird relationship with this.
It kind of feels like, I'm trying to think of an analogy to music of, like, is it like jazz where it's just, like, super complicated and hard to get into, but then it inspires all this other, like, pop culture, like, pop music, like, borrows so much from other genres that might be dense and complicated.
Yeah, it's like if it's like a jazz album, but no instrument is used more than once.
Okay.
It's really it's like, it's too much, right? It's like everyone who's playing it, you know, there's like a 1% chance that they've, like, played the instrument before.
So it's like if you were a musician, every time you show up, it's like, all right, you're playing this instrument now,
yeah,
and you've never played that before.
Yeah, like, this is the type of game that you have to, like have other music on. Like, there's no sound. Like, you have to, like, create a whole vibe for yourself before you play it. And it does feel like it's you're going back in time because it's such, like, even though they're still updating it and making it, like, easier to play, like, the file size is still kept small and the integrity of the art style hasn't changed, and there's, like, a lot of other little forks off of it of, like, different versions of it that do add in, like, sprites or tile sets or just, like, convenient stuff, but none of it has the same level of complexity and interaction that the core version has. Everyone else wants to simplify it, but I think something gets lost there. A good example of that is there's this version called Brogue, where you can just click on the screen and your character will walk there, and the other monsters will, like, do their thing as you're walking there. But there's only two types of food. There's, like, a cram ration, like a World War II ration, and a mango. And they kind of do the same thing. But in NetHack, like, there's all sorts of food. Like, there's spinach, there's, like, pie, there's carrots, but all of those also have like additional features tied to them. Like if you're blinded by something, like I can't see. If you eat a carrot, you'll get your sight back.
Right.
So it's like stuff like that.
So you gotta be strategic about what you put.
Yeah,
in
that's
the
just crack to me. Like I love that stuff.
To me, it'd be like, I don't know. I guess if I played, I would not. I would. It would bother me if someone were always behind me, like, "Ooh, should have eaten the spinach."
Right.
You know. And
Yeah.
It's like, you never know like what to do. It kind of feels better when it's just like other video games where it's like, oh, okay, health, and now I have health.
Right. And through that, the relationship like that I have with games like that, I can always watch someone stream it, or I can watch a playthrough of it and kind of get the vibe. Right. I can go on an adventure while I'm working on something else because this person is like talking about it, reacting to it, or whatever. But this game is like not on the internet very much. Like no big streamer, that plays like Minecraft or, like Fortnite or, the latest Pokemon or Mario is going to play NetHack, right? like this is a game for like weirdos.
I don't know, maybe like Twitch TV Land,
right.
Like a Twitch channel for old people. All right, Grant. Well, thanks for sharing. That was really
no
interesting.
problem.
And anything else you want to add before we let you go?
I hope I didn't put anyone to sleep.
With at the end there with that inspiring music, it really felt like could you like see the American flag waving behind you? Of, like, like either jump in and do it or just never play this.
No, I think I'm not going to tell anyone to play it or not to play it. Maybe look it up. Decide for yourself, but it's a rabbit hole. Again, I'm garbage at it, and nobody else plays it, and is like, I've never seen a full run, like, well documented. It's always like, there's a video or two missing, or it's like really low quality, or someone's just blowing through the game, like speedrunning it really fast, and they're just exploiting, like, oh, if you just do this and this and this in this specific order, you basically win. And that's, like, not as entertaining for me. Right. So, yeah. Cool. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for coming. All right, we'll be right back with the next one. Nemo, what's up?
Not much. What's up with you?
Just listening to all these interesting stories, and I feel like we're about to go into something a little supernatural next.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what do you got in store for us?
A fun little frog man.
Fun? Is it a little frog man?
No, he's decent. He's a decent size. He's the size of a person, basically. That's why he's a frog man. He's about 4 feet tall.
And I'll let you decide. Do you want to chat about this a little bit, or do you want to just let the story reveal what we're talking about, and then we'll talk after?
I kind of want to jump right into it.
All right, let's jump right into it. What's this frogman?
Hey there, everybody. Who's ready to talk about cryptids? So, for a while now, I've had an interest in pretty much everything spooky or weird. And part of that interest is in cryptids. Now, not all cryptids are the spooky, I'm gonna kill you when you eat your liver types you're probably thinking of. Some creatures out there are just kind of weird. They're just a little quirky, They're just out of the ordinary. But that's kind of what I like about cryptids. They come in basically every shape and size you can imagine. And what would you say if I told you that there were cryptids living right here in Ohio? Yep, there's actually a surprising amount of them around. Do you like frogs? I mean, that's a silly question. Who doesn't love those slimy little guys? Well, over in Loveland, Ohio, lives one of the most popular cryptids in the state. Our own froggy friend, the Loveland Frogman. The creature is, as you're probably guessing, one very big humanoid frog. It's about 4 feet tall, which is probably not as big as you'd think of when you think of monster frogs, but it's still pretty big for a frog that's like the size of a small child. But it definitely falls into the more weird side of cryptids that I talked about earlier than the dangerous, scary kind. The existence of the Loveland Frogman can be summed up more or less with 4 encounters. Technically 3, since 2 of them can be combined into one big experience, but I like to say 4. It was first spotted in 1955, and this is probably my favorite sighting because there's a bit of variation in it. There's apparently like 100 different versions of this story, but there are 3 main versions that we usually go by. Each story begins the same, with a man driving down the road at night. As he goes down the road, he runs into not 1, not 2, but 3 frogmen. In one version, they just stand on their hind legs and look at the driver. In another, the frogs are crouching below a bridge when the driver honks at them. This causes one of the frogs to hop out and onto the driver's hood, which makes him faint. I mean, who wouldn't be scared of a giant frog on your hood? Yeah, it's definitely not supposed to happen. Now, the last story is the one that I really would like to believe is real, just because of how crazy it is. In this version, the driver actually gets out of the car to see the frogs. They all turn to him after clearly being interrupted from a very deep and important conversation. And one of them pulls what the driver can only describe as a wand out. Sparks fly out of it, but before anything can happen, the driver runs away. Can you see now why it's my favorite? The second story is from the 70s, and is the one that's basically 2 stories that can be combined into one. In 1972, a Loveland police officer was driving when he almost actually hit what he believed to be the frogman. It then proceeded to jump into the river next to them. 2 weeks later, a second officer came across the creature. However, unfortunately, this one decided to shoot it. Great job, officer. He brought it back to show the first officer, and according to them, it was just one big iguana who had lost its tail instead of the Loveland Frogman. They figured it was someone's pet who had either gotten too big and was released or had run away. The most recent encounter, with encounter in heavy quotation marks, which I'll explain later, took place in 2016, so pretty recent. A couple was walking by the water playing Pokemon Go, because it's 2016, when they saw the frogman standing in the water. They took a video of it for proof, but it's pretty bad. Someone was basically able to recreate the video by using a Halloween decoration they found at the store. And I've seen the video. It basically just looks like a dark-shaped bright eye, so it's pretty doubtful that that one's real. I guess they just believe in magic wands more than just standing in the water. I tried to see how the town of Loveland itself sees the frogmen. Do they like it? Do they do anything with it, like the Mothman Festival does? I couldn't find out much, but I did find out about the Loveland Frogman Race, which is an annual triathlon around there. Not sure if it's named after the same frog, but personally I hope so. I think that would be really fun. Now, before I close this, I want to give a shout out to some of the other creepy critters around Ohio. Start off with, of course, we have our own version of Bigfoot, like basically every other state. Here we call it the Grassman. There's a lake monster up in Lake Erie called Bessie. We have a couple large humanoid creatures, like the 11-foot-tall Orange Eyes, or the 7-foot-tall Charles Mill Lake Monster. Some people have even claimed that Mothman himself has visited here and kind of claim it as our own, but we all know that his home will always be the wild and wonderful West Virginia. Cryptids have held my attention for quite some time now, and I've really become fascinated with them. I like the idea that there's more to this world than what we can see. That creatures this wild and weird could really be out there, and that maybe, just maybe, one of us could find them and prove that they're real. That's why I like looking at Ohio cryptids, because it feels like they're basically just in my backyard. Good thing we don't have any that are too scary. The last thing we need is something monstrous running around. Though apparently we have a dog man, which might be more of the dangerous side, but yeah, who doesn't want to go out petting a big dog? But that's Ohio's favorite little frog and his friends. Have a nice night, guys. And remember, I'll always be here, standing right behind you, speaking gibberish into your ears. Good night, guys.
Thanks for that. What do you think it is that fascinates people about cryptids?
Well, it's like I said in the thing. I think that we're just fascinated by the unknown and want to peer into it to see what's all there.
And what do we hope to find? Like when we're looking into cryptids, like do you think people are looking for some kind of like answer to something, or is it a representation of like our fears? Like what do you think?
Well, one of my inspirations for this was a podcast about cryptids called The Cryptid Keeper, which is basically a comedy podcast, but they talk about cryptids and stuff. But they do have some like interesting ideas about cryptids, and one of them that I am particularly interested in is that they said that one of the reasons that we're so interested in cryptids is because especially the more scary ones that could potentially hurt you, is because as humans, we sort of removed ourselves from the food chain. So it kind of terrifies us to know that there could be something above us, so to speak.
So it's the absence of something jumping out of the woods or the water to kill us that makes us need to think like, oh, it's going to be like a giant dragon or this giant like ape-like person.
Yeah, it's the fear, I believe, is part of the reason. The other is just us trying to answer the unknown questions of like, why did this weird thing happen? It's easier sometimes to blame it on a monster than something real.
What do you think Frogman did to start his whole legacy?
I like to believe someone actually saw a frogman, but who knows? It could be just somebody saw something weird and was like, oh, it's a frog.
And what would you do if you saw Frogman?
I would try to get close, give it a high five, or something like that.
Yeah, you think Frogman's friendly?
I think so, yeah. He seems pretty friendly. It's more the people around him bothering them.
Yeah, it does seem like, in tales of like with monsters, it tends to be the monsters always like misunderstood.
Yeah.
It's always like the village is trying to take down this thing that they don't understand, and if they just get to know them a little bit, maybe it would be okay.
Unless they're actually scary, and then in that case, that's justified.
That's true. Some monsters kind of, they make their own reputation, but sometimes we prescribe reputations to the things that we don't know because we're afraid of them, and then we act on those fears.
Yeah. Kind of. Or sometimes people are just jerks and decide to shoot a big frog.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know why if you saw a big frog, your immediate instinct would be to shoot it. But
yeah, I guess he wanted to prove that it wasn't the actual frogman or something.
All right, well, thanks for sharing. Anything else that you want to add in before we let you go?
Yes. When I was researching, I actually forgot about something.
Okay.
but the Frogman actually has a musical called Hot Damn, the Loveland Frogman. It's an Ohio production, but it's just like, I forgot it existed.
Hot Damn.
The Loveland Frogman.
Loveland Frogman. And this is a musical on stage. It's a live performance. People can actually go see this?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like still being like performed and stuff. It says it was performed in like 2014. So, but I just liked knowing that it was out there, just telling stories that have to do with the Frogman.
That's great. And it's a musical, you said?
Yeah, it's a bluegrass musical. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to look up the soundtrack for that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I haven't had the chance to actually listen to the music myself, but I definitely want to.
Yeah, my wheels are turning for what a Frogman musical sounds like, but
yeah.
I'm not going to imagine. I'm going to go find it and find out for real. Well, this was interesting.
Definitely.
Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
All right, we'll be right back with the next one.
Have a nice night.
All right, we're back with Caleb.
Hello.
Caleb, how's it going tonight?
It's okay. It's all right.
It's okay. It's all right. Yeah.
I think everything's okay.
This is it, though, right? Because after this, like, is semester over? You got more to do.
I think I might have one thing. I'm going to try to see if I can get in.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just finished.
Cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
We're gonna play your story, and then you'll be done with this class at least. I can't speak for the others, but what are we about to jump into? Tell us what we're gonna listen to.
We're about to listen to a talk between a cis male and a transgendered woman, and we're going to be talking about the experience of what it's like to be trans for people who don't know.
All right. Do you want to just jump into it, or do you want to talk about it a little bit now?
Let's just jump in.
Jump in? Okay, we'll talk on the other end.
What's up, dude bro?
Dude bro?
Dude bro, give me some salmon.
Okay, yeah, dude bro. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not a dude.
What?
Nor a bro.
Not
a dude bro, man. Not a man, actually. I'm just a woman.
What do you mean? You're like born dude bro.
Dude bro. I was born dude bro. Doesn't mean I am dude bro. I'm not a dude bro.
Okay. What?
I'm a trans woman. I'm a woman. Part of that is the trans part, but most of that's being the woman, right? Shouldn't it be at least?
I don't get it. I'm Caleb Boyer.
I'm Marceline Thurston.
And today we're going to be talking about the experience of coming out as trans.
And just being trans in general. In general.
We're going to try to break down the barriers, gain a new understanding and perspective for those who don't know or understand what it's like to be or exist as a transgendered person. Yeah. So tell me about yourself.
I'm transgender, pansexual. Been a woman for a couple years now. I'd say I realized late 2019. This is late 2020. The 17th is my 2 years of realizing I'm trans.
What were some of your first experiences realizing that you weren't in the body that you're supposed to be in?
The first time I should have realized was probably my sophomore year when I got my wisdom teeth out, and my doctor was like, "Hey, Marcy, pop these painkillers for me." And I was like, hell yeah. So when I was on the painkillers, I got 2 acquaintances of mine and put them in an Instagram group chat and just sent them a bunch of cool feminine fashion and makeup, and it was like, this is just normal. I'm just on painkillers. This has nothing to do with me. I'm not just more comfortable to share parts of me right now. That's not true. I was just more comfortable to share parts of me during that time because I was on painkillers and hallucinating, basically, and just having a good time.
Yeah, it like took away your anxiety of, worrying about doing those things.
But that's when I should have realized I was trans.
Yeah,
maybe I should have realized I was trans in my freshman year when I went out to Halloween just dressed as a woman with my best friend. Just straight up, just like as a fucking woman. I just wore a dress and that was the entire costume. Up. That's literally why I still go out to Halloween as a woman, just because I think that's funny. It's a tradition at this point. 7 years straight. This next year will be 7 years straight.
So, did it take some time before you fully understood that you were?
Yeah, so when I realized I was trans, I already had, like, a beginning collection of girls' clothes, because I just like to go out and drag, okay? It's nothing with my gender identity, I just like to be in drag. Just like some drag. So, my friends at the time invited me to a show called A Pretty Good Show, and it was a pretty bad show, all things considered. I did not have a great time, even though I wasn't drag. I looked hot as fuck, and people genuinely just thought I was a cis female that was 6'3", which I am, trust me. Completely cis. Okay. But yeah, no. I was just like, nah, I'm a man. And then I met this guy, this dude named Seth. And we just like talked for a second, and he was like, so you're a girl, right? And I was like, no, I'm a man. My name's just like that's the bleep out noise, if you're wondering.
Right.
He was like, all right, sick. So are you trans? And I was like, no. But my gear started turning, because someone looked me in the eyes and asked me, are you trans? As I was in full drag, and I was like, I'm a woman.
It was after the running into Seth.
Yeah, someone I met that one night and never spoke to again. Yes.
And then you started asking yourself.
I started asking. I didn't even ask myself after that. I was like, shit, I am. Just like almost immediately. Like it just clicked. Because like I realized that I was a feminine guy, a femboy, if you will, a while, before, like a few months before that, because as for mentioned, I was collecting girls' clothes. But just someone being like, are you? Made it click for me, like, yes, this is how I want to experience my life. This would make me so much happier as a human to be able to be a girl. It felt so right. So, the next day I went to school. I sat in my first class, and I felt this itch, this horrible, horrible crawl everywhere over my body. And I looked around. Nothing had changed in my situation besides realizing I was trans. I was sitting next to my good friend Ty at the time in computer science class, and just feeling and feeling and feeling. And I realized that there were ants under my skin. They were fucking riddled everywhere. And it was so scary, so painful, so itchy. I couldn't do anything about it. I felt like I needed to scream and scream because of the ants crawling under my skin. But they just stayed there. And I realized it was the feeling that I've just been repressing that's making me dissociate for so long. Because I wasn't a woman. The ants were always there. I just chose not to feel them. And now that I was aware of the ants and being perceived, I couldn't become unaware of the ants like I once was. Ignorance was bliss.
Wow. So, once you started realizing that you are in fact trans, you started you weren't able to feel comfortable in your skin, like it didn't feel like your own?
I don't think I was ever actually comfortable in my skin. I was just hyper aware of the fact that I wasn't comfortable in my skin anymore, you know? It's a horrible feeling. That feeling went on and on and on and on and on and on and on until the end of the year, until COVID yoinked us out.
Wow, so you had to deal with that.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day. It didn't stay as bad as it was on the first day. I learned to be able to live with the ants, but I still had experienced the ants every day.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So, you've decided that you are in fact trans.
Yes.
Before you actually became trans, what was that like?
So, before I was trans, every day was a battle. I'm not going to lie and say days now aren't also still struggleful, because they are. But before I realized I was trans, I felt like a ticking time bomb, if that makes sense, where every day I wake up and is today the day that I'm going to lose? Like it feels like I'm going to do every day? Or will I keep on pushing to attempt to lose another day? And if there was a singular day that I lost, my life would have been forfeit. and I would have done it. I wouldn't have realized anything. I would have killed myself instead because I couldn't take being in the war zone anymore. I had a friend that I made 7th grade who was my friend until my junior year. When they killed themselves, they were the ones that wore a dress on Halloween with me. On the last day of 8th grade, they wore knee socks with me because I got them knee socks to wear with me, and just like, they weren't cis. They were not cis whatsoever. I can tell you that much sure right now. And they lost their battle one day, and I miss them. Yeah.
Getting misgendered and dead named feels like you're being stabbed in the back, like feeling
I wouldn't
trapped.
use that terminology.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel good. It activates a flight or fight instantly. I do all three, where I'm fighting, running away, and then I'm also freezing at the same time. So like all of my parts are just like activated and like wanting to get out.
It's panic.
Yes, pure fucking panic. It's panic and anger and sadness, and it's like getting kicked in the balls and punched in the tits at the same time.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's not fun.
No, it's not. So, you would say that coming out as a transgender woman is the best thing to happen?
It's so nice to happen. Even though every day still feels like a battle, more or less, I feel like I actually win when I complete the day instead. It doesn't feel like a lesser loss. It feels like I'm purposefully here, and I'm happy to be so. It feels like a warm embrace. Really, it feels like the best hug you've ever fucking had.
Thank you for your time, Mercy. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Caleb. This was recorded on Wednesday the 8th, 2021.
Caleb, thanks for that. That was pretty intense and pretty intimate conversation. Just take me through your approach. Like, what made you want to do this topic?
So Marcy and I had been talking about maybe coming together and doing a talk. And in the past, Marcy and I have had really great, deep, personal talks before. So with me being just a straight white man, I have never really experienced or never really thought of like what it's like to go through some of the things that transgendered people have to go through with struggling with who they are every single day and just not feeling right in their skin. And Marcy's talked to me about like how great she feels after transitioning and how much healthier she is. So I just thought it would be a good idea to talk with her about her experiences, try to see just get a deep dive into the psyche, what it's like to go through that.
Yeah, and this is someone you mentioned you had a lot of deep conversations with. So this is like a close friend.
Yeah, I met Marcy this year from this class, and we just
kind of clicked.
We were able to be open around each other and just be.
So what's that like? I mean, when you're in an interview like this and some really intense topics coming up, like how difficult transitioning is, and seeing friends or other people that kind of don't survive.
Yeah,
what's it like hearing that?
It is heavy. It's some heavy stuff. When it comes to getting a podcast going, just kind of bite it, take a hold of it, and just try to find your way to keep it going.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we talked it out a little bit before starting. It wasn't completely fresh going in.
Yeah.
We kind of got some points to go over. So we both knew what we were there to drive the story, so we didn't like resonate too much on it.
Right. Yeah.
it was kind of difficult to cut down because there was a lot of stuff I wanted to keep in. Like there's some good stories in there that I had to take out, but
I mean, yeah, it's a tough topic to cover in 10 minutes.
It is.
But, I'm glad you guys did it because, it's an important conversation.
Yeah.
And you often don't hear about it in the way you went about it, which is just a conversation between two friends. It's actually a really good way to kind of disarm and just kind of talk naturally about it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind of talking about the trans community almost like with a 10-foot pole is like they're over here and we're over here and this is how you need to treat. But like a conversation between two friends, it doesn't get much closer than that.
No, it really doesn't. I thought that there was a lot of just getting your whole perspective shifted into their head and what it was like to figure out this isn't right for me. Like the feeling of discomfort that feels like ants crawling under your skin.
Yeah.
Like imagining that and going through that every day because you're just not comfortable with who you are. And
yeah,
tense. It's crazy. It's hard to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it makes me think about all the other people, like so many people out there that have transitioned and what it must have been like for them as well. Like it really puts it into perspective and makes you a lot more empathetic towards them.
Anything else you want to share before we let you go?
No, I don't have anything.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Caleb, thanks a lot. That was a really, really great topic and a hard topic. So I commend you for diving into it the way you did. So and for Marcy as well for who was the one exposing and putting themselves out there. So Marcy, thank you for doing that too. So Caleb, thanks a lot. All right, we'll be back with the next one. All right, Desiree, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. There's been a lot of interesting stories tonight.
Yes.
What do you have in store for us?
So for my last project, I did an interview with Jeff, who goes to school here, and we talked about graduation and all of like the stress leading up to it, and like people being scared and just like this graduation scaries. And then for this project, we talked about our experience throughout college and everything we've learned and how we're going to take that to once we graduate.
Okay. And are you graduating soon?
Next semester.
Next semester, so in May?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you have the graduation scaries? Or do you feel better after going through this, having this conversation?
You'll hear at the end of the podcast, we kind of like make a full circle. Like the first podcast, we were both kind of just like nervous, but now we're ready.
All right.
Ready to graduate.
Well, let's jump into it and see that journey.
Hi guys. It's me, Des. We are here for part 2. I have my guest, Jeff, with me again.
Hello again. So today we're together here in this recording studio to talk about, well, first I'll say last time we talked about our anticipation of graduating from college, in this case CCAD. And for this episode, we decided to talk about our experiences at school and some of the lessons we've learned, or life lessons that is, and what ways we might apply those to our futures, and I guess reminisce before we actually graduate.
Yes. Okay, we're just going to get straight into it.
All right, well, we're both seniors, and we're both graduating next semester, right?
Yes, in May.
All right, so I think we've been here long enough to look back. I guess let's start thinking about what it was like when you first started and what feelings, we might have had and starting freshman year versus our feelings starting senior year.
So
I was a transfer student, so I came like my sophomore year.
Oh, me too, actually.
That was, I think, 2019 maybe. I mean, I moved to this city not knowing anyone at all. Moved into a studio apartment, lived by myself, went to a new school, new city, hour and a half away from my house.
I assume like everybody had kind of gotten to know each other, and then you were like...
Yeah, well, surprisingly, there was a lot of students in my class who were also transfer.
Mine too.
It was really weird. Like, they're all like, oh yeah, I'm transfer too. So like, I think we all kind of related in that way, so we weren't like all super alone. So that was good.
So what was it like moving to a city by yourself?
I was honestly so excited. I could not wait to get away from my family and away from that small town. And I just love the city and like love being around people. So I could not wait.
So I'll talk about my first experience, going to school. And it was similar, where going to a city, leaving a kind of a small town. And I had no fear. I was like ready to go. And I think I felt way more natural and actually myself as soon as I got to the city.
Me
so that was an
too.
easy transition. When I started at Mass Art, it was pretty easy to make friends right away because I was in a dorm and all that stuff. But when I moved here to start at CCAD, I was in a similar boat where I was a transfer, and I had a little apartment by myself. And I didn't know anybody either. But I think having a school is a good way to actually just start to make friends, which is different than going into the workforce or moving to a different city after school. Without having a school community, it's like you don't have that immediate social circle or access to that. And making friends was a lot different. I feel like when I look back on my time at CCAD, I'm going to think about COVID's going to eclipse all of that.
Yeah.
It's something that we're going to be telling, I mean, if either of us ever have kids. But I mean, that's the kind of thing we'll be telling younger generations about. Like, they're going to be like, what the hell? That's so crazy that you guys lived through that.
I was in college during COVID.
I was a young adult. And and we didn't know what the hell's going on. So that's a huge part of the experience. Looking back, it's actually hard to think about anything outside of it. I think
us as humans, we learned a lot just through COVID. Like, we learned how to cope being alone and how to work online and like stay away from people and not associate. And
I did not learn how to stay away from people.
I mean, we all went through mental challenges and everything. So. What's like one main thing you've learned throughout your years of college? Something that's really changed you as a person that you're excited to use like after you graduate, I guess.
Well, I think a new struggle I had this semester, because, when you study painting, you're working by yourself. So something that really affected how I went about it was my first semester here when I just transferred in one of our intro kind of freshman-oriented classes, whatever it was. We did this activity. We had to, like, make the tallest structure we could out of them in groups of, like, 3, and people I'd never met. And so we had, like, 5 minutes to do it, and it was, like, everybody going at the same time who could make the tallest thing with these straws and marshmallows. And so we started, and everybody was kind of just, like, looking around, nobody was, like, stepping up or showing ideas. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll do that. Okay, we should try this. We should do this, blah, blah, blah. And people just went with it. And ours, like, failed the most out of everybody's. And we found out after that, they do this exercise at, like, business conventions or whatever that is. Compared to adults, when they do this exercise with children do, like, phenomenally better, like, way better. And it's because they don't ever have someone like in charge. Like, there's never like a leader. So when the kids don't have like one person kind of dictating like what, kind of leading it, apparently they were just way more creative and open-minded and chill, and they build way taller structures faster.
Interesting. How do we apply that to our work life if we're not trying to be the leader and stuff?
So it's a situation that's just going to happen sometimes in your life. The lesson wasn't that a way to fix it, really. It was more to just know that you can't control everything, and you kind of have to roll with it and somehow get creative. And in that case, I had to do a lot of extra work, honestly. Yeah, so I don't know. That's something that's going to happen to me in the future, at a job. And at least this time around, I won't be so anxious about it. I think it'll be I'll know what not to do at the very least.
Okay, so during COVID, I actually spent a whole semester in LA. So, from my experience in LA versus coming back to school, during COVID, because I've had, like both sides, I wanted to drop out so bad.
Oh.
I was like, it's not worth finishing. Like, we're in COVID. Who knows when we'll go back? Like, I'm just wasting my time and money.
That's valid.
Like, I
think we all had
hate
that
it
thought at
here.
some
I'm not
point.
learning anything. Yeah. And I was like, I'm already here in LA. Like, I have friends. I'm already taking pictures and stuff. Well, fast forward to now. I'm graduating in one more semester, and I am so glad that I stayed. I honestly have learned a lot my last year of college than I have in the past all combined. But that was a huge thing of this whole entire college experience, was like deciding to drop out or not because of COVID, and like if I could just start fresh and do my own thing, because I know so many photographers in LA who didn't go to college. They just are self-taught and are like millionaires now.
Yeah, photography is like, blends into fine art.
Yeah.
And that's when a degree is, depends. I don't
Questionable.
know.
Yeah, I'm so glad I'm going with it now, because
just because it would suck to just not.
I'm feel safe and more happy knowing that I have a degree and I am learning more than
and you like
what I thought I was.
accomplish something major. It's really hard to go through 4 years
Yeah.
of school, and that's a big thing to kind of frame in the piece of paper.
I know. I'm going to be so proud of myself once I actually finish, because it's been rough.
Well, last time we talked about graduating, kind of being nervous about it, and that was at the beginning of the semester, I think. And now we're like halfway done with our senior year, and I feel like our outlooks have both changed so much.
Yeah.
And maybe COVID kind of was a part of that, where it's like, whatever. Like, if that happened, that was so hard that now simple things like getting a job and working, it's like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's made us stronger now.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? Full circle with this podcast. Really, though, that is my outlook, where, life bullshit happens, and it's like, whatever, that's not as intense as
what we've been through.
Working remote for a year.
Yeah, so now I'm excited to graduate and
I'm ready.
See what happens.
I'm ready to get the hell out of here. It's been real CCAD, but I need
great,
to
guys.
spread my wings and make some money.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up this podcast. Thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for having me, Des.
Of course. Thank you, Jeff. And we will talk to you guys later.
Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for sharing. That's it's something that almost everyone goes through. Everyone that goes to college at least.
Yeah.
But it's one thing there at the end that I remember recognizing, and working in higher ed, I always see students kind of go through this, is like early on, if you're really enjoying college, you hope you never graduate, or if you are dreading graduation, you hope it never comes because of the dread. But it seems like everyone, by the time they get there, they, like you mentioned, like feel ready. Do you remember like the moment when you're like, okay, I feel ready?
I honestly want to say it might have been a couple weeks ago, like once we started finals. I think I saw like how far I've come throughout the years, just like my work getting better and all like the connections I made through class and stuff. And I think that's when I realized like I'm ready, I got it done, and I did what I had to do, and
Everything's
I'm
just
proud
kinda
of myself.
clicked,
Yeah,
yeah.
it just all kind of came together finally. But
And what would be your advice for that first year student, or even a high school student that's thinking like, oh man, college and then graduation, and thinking college itself might even be daunting? It seems like we always have those milestones. I mean, maybe after college you have fewer of them, but it's like graduating high school, graduating college, getting your first job. Like, there's a lot of milestones really kind of squished together in your 20s. What would be your advice to people about to go through it?
so I feel like when we think that way, we think it's like so far away and it's going to be a super long journey, but it actually goes by really fast. And so I guess I would tell them to not overthink and just be present in the moment, but also work as hard as you can and just like never give up. Like, you're going to get there eventually, and if you stress too much, then it's not going to be as enjoyable as you wish it would be once you're done.
Yeah.
So.
And, it's not unique to college. Everything kind of, in a way, works itself out or becomes easier to process through as you approach it. Because I remember college was really scary. Then you're in college and you're like, what's after college? That's really scary. And then you're working and then you're like, oh, but like...
It just like never stops.
Yeah, like
so.
I want to get a house. Like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
That's really scary. And then you find the process isn't that bad. My mom always had a saying. We would go biking and we lived in a really hilly area. And I'd always complain about like a hill coming up. And she'd say, don't worry, like the hill flattens itself out as you go up. And I feel like that's the case with graduation, with all these big milestones. Like it feels like a big hill you're about to climb, but then once you're on it, it's like, oh, it's just one foot for the other.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a nice way to think of it.
Anything else you want to leave us with before we let you go?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing a very timely topic here as we end up the semester. So
yes,
I hope your advice from your podcast and you guys talking it through helps people feel a little bit better about what they're about to go through.
Yes, me too.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be back with the next one. All right. Zarek, how's it going?
Not too bad.
So, help set up for us what we're about to get into.
So I interviewed my great uncle about his marriage with my great aunt, my Aunt Darlene. She passed in 2018, and I never really talked to him that much until after she passed, and then we really got connected for the first time, and I love listening to him talk, and so I wanted to interview him, and so we went down to where he lives in Springboro, this cute little house, and it was a really good conversation.
So it'll be a conversation between an uncle and a nephew, essentially. And that's a pretty intimate conversation. What do you hope people, that don't know you, don't know your uncle, don't know your family, what do you hope they get from listening?
Yeah, that's interesting because I have this weird perspective where I'm like, I don't know if other people will find it interesting, but at the end of the sorry, I cannot talk.
You're good.
At the end of the day, I think people should take away being grateful for loved ones, and just the time that we have is so short, so just making the most of it.
Yeah. We all have a story to tell, and when we hear other people's stories, it kind of inevitably we find something we connect with. So I'm sure as we get into it, everyone will find their own thing in it. Is there anything else you want to mention before we jump in, or you want to just jump in?
Let's just jump in.
All right.
Probably the most precious moment in my life is when I first saw her come down the aisle, and I lost it up there in the altar for just a little bit. But that's the best moment of my life. It's emblazoned in my mind, her walking up the aisle.
July 25th, 1971, Fred Gibson would marry his best friend, Darlene Burler. The two would go on to have an amazing marriage for the next 47 years, raising their son, going on vacations, clearing out all the glass mice figurines at any store possible. Hello, my name is Zarek. I am very blessed to have these two wonderful people as my great aunt and my great uncle. When I was a kid, I would absolutely love when Uncle Fred and Aunt Darlene came around for family Thanksgivings. My uncle would roam the house looking for picture frames that need readjusted because they were crooked. My aunt was the sweetest, softest spoken person who would show you how much she loved you just by the smile on her face and her contagious laugh. Sadly, in 2018, Aunt Darlene passed away due to medical issues. Over the past 3 years, Uncle Fred and myself have grown a lot closer to one another, having deeper conversations than we ever had in our entire relationship. I really enjoyed talking to him about life and other topics, so I thought it was important for me to interview him about his marriage to Darlene and just get to learn more of their story. They lived so much of their life before I was even alive, so there's decades worth of memories that I'm eager to learn about. And I want to get his perspective on his experience about losing your one true love. My fiancée McKenna and I drove down to the house that my uncle has lived in for the past 27 years. It had been 10 years since the last time I was in that house. When I walked in, it was exactly how I remembered it. From the outside, it's a cute little house, but on the inside, it's a beautiful curated museum of gingerbread figures and carousels and all different types of mediums and glass figures and sculptures, and Uncle Fred showed us around the house.
There's several things around the house that I'd like to show you.
Okay.
And let's do that. We built this house 34 years ago. You're going to notice real quick a theme. Darlene loved carousels. She loved gingerbread. And as you look around, you'll see they're everywhere. And I faithfully believe it's my job to preserve all this. I've been asked several times, why don't you pack up, move into a smaller place? And I'm not going to do that. I'm going to, as long as I can, I'm going to take care of this. You see carousels here and a horse and carousels there. This was one of her very favorite.
He goes over to a coffee table with horses lining the outside holding up the glass, and he goes over and he pushes it and they spin. And the horses go around just like you would see in a carousel.
She found that at Elder Bierman and just absolutely fell in love with it, and it's quite unique. I've never seen anything like it. There are carousels here and there and carousel horses, and again it's all her. Quite a bit about a lot of this stuff, but this is all stuff that she collects. This cup and saucer right here, there's 2 of them in there. We got those at the Grand Hotel on our 25th anniversary. One of the things she collected was mice. And we got those from all over the place, and all the places. A lot of them came from Gatlinburg.
This beautiful glass case filled with glass mice figurines. Mice reading a book in the snow. You have mice for each holiday, like Christmas and Halloween and Easter. A bride and groom mice and a heart holding hands.
Let's see here. Well, there's the marriage one right there. See the bride and groom standing there right there. There's Christmas. There's all different kinds of holidays on here. More there. This is her gingerbread cookie jar cupboard right here. And those, again, were collected from all over the place, as was all of this.
The whole house has such a cute feel to it. Darlene's presence fills the house more than you would think. Darlene's presence is the house, and you feel that as soon as you walk in. It's like a part of her never left. A part of her stays within that house forever. When he's feeling lonely and he misses her, he can look at those beautiful mice in the cabinet and just have a smile on his face. So if you could just give me a brief overview of like your upbringing and like about your family. And
my name is Fred Gibson. I was born and raised in Marietta, Ohio. August 30th, 1945 is my birthday. It was so important to my mother because I was born right after the war, and I was a peace baby. Whatever that meant, I was a peace baby, and it was very important to her. I had 2 siblings, an older sister who's no longer with us, and a younger sister who's your grandmother, and of course Mom and Dad. And as far as I'm concerned, I had a great life. Mom and Dad weren't rich, but we got everything we could possibly want and never realized that or had a need to want for anything. It was just a great life.
How did you and Darlene meet?
Darlene was a school chum of your grandmother's.
Did you say chum?
Buddies, pals. She was over at the house quite a bit, and that was back in the days when I was not particularly paying any attention to girls, and I didn't pay much attention to her either. But when I got out of the Army, your grandmother thought that it was her duty that I should be set up, and she set me up with Darlene.
Yeah.
She was responsible for our first dates, and we double dated quite a bit with Jack and Kathy.
So I did talk to Grandma, and she said that your first date was a movie. Do you remember what movie that was?
The Sound of Music.
And how did that date go?
So the date went fine, since I had a crush on Julie Andrews. I thought she was just swell. So, but the date went fine, and we continued to date, and it just progressed into what turned out to be a 47-year-old marriage.
Grandma said that you were hesitant to go on the double date.
I guess I wasn't ready for my sister to be setting me up on dates. I figured that's something I probably could handle on my own. But as it turned out, it worked out well.
Yeah. Was there a certain moment you knew you were going to propose, or when did you realize that?
There was a time that I realized that I was going to propose. Got Kathy involved again. I told her I wanted to buy a ring, and she said, "Well, you can't go without me because you're stupid that way." So she went with me when I picked out Darlene's ring.
Can you tell me about the proposal itself? How did you propose, and what was her reaction? And
her and I were in the house on 8th Street where I had lived with Dad. After I got out of the service, of course, my mother had passed away just before I got out of the service. Dad and I lived there together, and she was with me one night, and we were discussing future plans. And I knew that I wanted to do something to further my education, which was an associate degree in business administration. So I presented all that to her, and said, I'll be away, not far away, but I'll be away for a while, and I want to make sure that you wait for me. Will you marry me? And she said, yeah, she'd do that. It was a 2-year course, but I just doubled up because I was in a hurry to get married. So I did it 1 year.
Can you tell me about your wedding day and how it was? And
I was just kind of in a fog. Fortunately, everything was organized very, very well. I was happy, but I was like a deer caught in the headlights.
His tone changes and his hands and voice start to shake as he's recalling this moment.
Probably the most precious moment in my life is when I first saw her come down the aisle, and I lost it up there in the altar for just a little bit. But that's the best moment of my life. It's emblazoned in my mind, her walking up the aisle.
McKenna's eyes water up, and I'm fighting back tears as well. Can you try to describe that moment?
I was just simply overwhelmed. It's like I was able to block out everything else that was going on and just focus on her. It was almost like a movie, but that's really what happened. And then the wedding was routine. We got through it, and I did try to kiss her early. He said, no, not just yet. It was a very, very long day. We had to. The only thing we had to do was hang curtains when we got there, and we were both just absolutely exhausted, and we went to bed and went to sleep.
Any tips being in a marriage?
And I suspect we both did it, but you begin to take for granted what you have. Then when you get to a point where you don't have it anymore, you realize that you took it for granted, and you wish you'd have made the times more precious than they were. But the memories I have are just vast. I mean, we did everything. Of course, then Eric came along, and that was a big change.
Can you explain that change?
Well, we had a brand new baby. You guys know that Eric was adopted. Mm-hmm. We got him when he was 3 weeks old. We had everything ready in the house. He had his own bedroom. We both were involved with the care. my job started to take me away. I worked in several different states, so Darlene had a lot of the responsibility of taking care of the kid. Plus, she still worked. So we had a neighbor right next door who loved babysitting and helped us out that way. So just another whole series of adapting to the situation.
How did he impact like the family dynamic?
Oh, it would just totally change things because while we were both deeply in love with each other and supported each other, our purpose in life at that point was to make sure that he was raised as good as we could possibly raise him. So all of our efforts were devoted towards Eric.
Can you talk about the years that she was sick and what she was sick with, and how it impacted you, and the marriage as well, and what you did to help her along through that?
To make a long story short, she developed COPD because she was a smoker. It's the one thing that we really argued about through the years, up until a point when she told me just point blank to mind my own damn business that she would quit when she was ready to quit. And she did quit, but it was too late. It was too late. So she got COPD, and it was progressive. She also had ovarian cancer, for which she was a complete survivor of ovarian cancer. We did about a year of chemo, and then 4 more years of follow-up where she was declared cancer-free. So she was a fighter. As time goes on, the lungs get worse. We got to a point where she had to have oxygen for a while, and then oxygen permanently. There was a big machine over in the other room that had a coil that allowed her to go anywhere in the house. We had to have oxygen cylinders whenever we went anywhere. So I became very adapted at doing all that. I did it because it's what you do in a marriage. I did it because I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
We weren't able to do as much anymore. I did take her to the doctor. We got a what they call transport chair. She got an electric scooter, which while she was able to use it, and she used it a lot, we just made do with the condition she was in as she got worse, and just adapted until it got to a point where she actually went to hospice. Everything was shutting down, and I realized that, and I realized I couldn't. There were just certain things I couldn't do. So she got to hospice and actually had taken a turn a little bit for the better. But then it just all caught up with her, and she passed because of it.
How's your life been without her? And just has it gotten better with time?
First of all, I and Darlene were of the generation where the guy always died first. And I just figured that was what was going to happen. I did not allow my mind to accept the fact that I would be without her. She would be without me. We scrimped and saved and put together a nice 401k for when I passed, and she had something to go with. But that's not real life. It happened the other way. I would like to say that it gets better, but it doesn't get better, it just gets more tolerable. There are good times and bad times. So many things trigger lots of emotions, certain music. Our 50th wedding anniversary was this July, and that weighed heavily on my mind because it was something she talked about just endlessly. I mean, what are we going to do on our 50th anniversary? And then, we're going to make it. And we both did believe until the end that we were going to make it to our 50th anniversary. But she passed away 3 years prior to that. So I have my family. I have Kathy, and Jerry, and everybody like you associated with Kathy and Jerry, and my son, and my daughter-in-law, and my 2 grandsons, and Uncle Jerry and Barbara. But the hardest thing about doing what I'm doing is that it's lonely, and there are times when there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to be lonely. I still wear my wedding ring. I personally believe that I didn't stop being married just because she had to go away. I believe I'm still married. And that, that's a personal belief. Lots of other people move on. My dad moved on. Uncle Jerry moved on. I believe that I am married. I'm not deeply religious, but when I think about her and everybody else that's passed, I think that they're in a better place, and I hope I get to go there.
I don't know if you've thought about this, and you probably have, but if you could just spend like one more day with her, what would you say to her?
I would tell her more often that I loved her. She knew I loved her. I knew she loved me, but I didn't tell her as much as I should, and I'll always regret that. That's always going to be a regret that I didn't tell her. She knew that I loved her, but I didn't tell her enough, and that's my biggest regret. You guys, you're in the circle of life. You guys are just starting, so you have so many years, but don't take each other for granted. Just make sure you say it to each other every single day.
This was the moment that I was so grateful that McKenna was there across the table from me. And this is a moment that we both cherished together. And it was a nice reminder that we shouldn't take each other for granted. The past 4 years I've had with McKenna has just been amazing. And we drove home so much more grateful for each other than when we showed up. And that's not what either of us were expecting. Hearing my uncle and his pain, it was heartbreaking but heartwarming at the same time that he had so much love for her. They were meant for each other, and that's who McKenna is for me. She's meant for me, and hearing my uncle speak was so much more than just a story to me, and it meant the world to me that I could even get a glimpse of their decades of their life before I was even a thought. Just a glimpse into their loving relationship is something I want to emulate with McKenna. He shows us these two gingerbread people who sit on the half wall with their arms wrapped one another, one male and one female, all wrapped up in scarves and aprons and buttons, with the biggest smile on their faces.
These two guys right here, we would go to a lot of Christmas shows, and Darlene spotted those two, good Lord, a mile away. I don't see how she ever saw them, but she actually ran to get them. They were one of a kind. And we put them out for Christmas quite a few years. 2, maybe 3 years before she died, they disappeared. And we couldn't figure out. She was just heartbroken because it's her and I. After she died, and I would get restless, I'd start digging through things, and I dug through a box downstairs. I really shouldn't have been digging through. I mean, there was no reason other than I was digging through it, and there they were. So I set them there and told the housekeeper, I said, they're to stay right there. That's her and I kiss her goodnight every night, right there. So all of this brings a great deal of joy to me, but there's sadness involved too. We discussed final arrangements. We have a burial plot in Marietta. After her mom died, we went to make arrangements, and they were having a 2-for-1 sale. So we bought our plots. We've got those, and we decided that we'd go the cremation route. She was comfortable knowing that she would have my ashes here for as long as she lived, until she died. Well, that got reversed too, and right down there is Miss Darlene, and that gives me comfort. I can sit on my couch and I can look at her at any time. I talk to her. I told you before that it doesn't get better, but it gets easier maybe. We were married 47 years. She was my best friend and the love of my life, and that'll never change, and the hurt won't go away, but it's offset by all of this, and it's offset by knowing she wanted to go first, and she told me that several years prior to her dying, that she wanted to go first. And I kept asking, what am I going to do? And she just never really answered me. But now I know why she wanted to go first. And I'm glad that happened so that she doesn't have to go through what I'm going through.
All right, Zarek, thank you for sharing. That was, I wasn't quite sure what to expect going into it, and it's very sad and heartbreaking, but also kind of joyful.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of kind of almost inspiration there. I felt like there was a section there where you were talking about how it made you feel grateful and kind of made you and McKenna kind of reflect on your own journey that you're about to go through.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like? I mean, you talk to someone who went through the worst situations you can go through in a marriage, and now you're heading into a marriage.
Yeah. I look at it like excited because, there are the ups and downs of a marriage, but the way that my uncle like talks about her and like the joy that he has, the joy that just talking about her brings him, it's like that's what I have now, and I'm just excited to live my whole life with her and create those memories, and it just, you get so like bogged down with life. So it was literally on the drive home that like I felt like we like saw each other again for like the first time, not in a while, but like it was like, wow, like you're so precious to me, and like I don't say that enough. So it was really awesome, and she was just sitting across the table and laughing, and she cries really easily. And so my uncle would say something, and then I'm like, I know she's crying. I look over and she's wiping her eyes. So it was really awesome. But
yeah, it's incredibly sad and heartbreaking, and you hope you never go through it or anyone that you know and love goes through it. But I mean, hearing that conversation, it kind of deep down makes you feel like even if that worst situation happens, it'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. It doesn't mean you're gonna like it, or it's not gonna be sad and heartbreaking, but it'll be okay.
Yeah, I think it's like adapting. Like he adapted through her sickness, and I think he's adapting now. And I'd say he's doing it well, but it just I look up to him for so many reasons, and I think this is the way he's going about how this awful situation is a reason why I look up to him.
Great. That's a good place to leave it, unless you have anything else to share with us.
I don't.
Okay, well, thank you so much. You've shared a lot. It was a great story, and really appreciate you and your uncle telling his story. That's not an easy thing to do. When you said you were doing this project, I at one point thought like, well, I hope he's into it. I hope he appreciates the opportunity or doesn't feel forced or anything. It didn't, and I didn't get that at all. It seems like he was I don't want to say happy to tell a story, but it felt
willing.
Like he had a story, willing to tell a story. So I appreciate you allowing us to listen to it.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks. All right, we'll be back with the next one. All right, and that next one is actually going to turn a phrase that I think our next presenter, who won't be with us, will appreciate. And now for something completely different. Marcy, who you heard as a guest in Caleb's podcast, has a project in this class. Marcy couldn't be with us tonight, so Marcy, this one's going out to you, and I'm just going to let it run.
Welcome back to the first episode of the John Sage Fan Club podcast, everybody. I'm Marcy.
And I'm Cece.
What does John Sage say when he crosses the road?
No, I don't know. What does he say?
What does Jonathan Kaga say when he crosses the road?
What does he say?
Get it? Because the music he produces is nothing. I hate Jonathan Kaga.
Me and my homies hate him too.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone in their right mind would be a fan of Jonathan Kaga over John Sage.
Yeah, it's sad that he got so lost to history.
Right?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Jonathan Kaga overshadowed him so much. I mean, like, he was really a very significant part. I'd argue that he's right up there with Murray Schafer and Luigi Russolo in terms of his brilliance.
It's hurtful. At the end of the day, it is. Because I just want John Sage to be remembered as one of the greats. He was there with Igor Stravinsky and Jonathan Kaga when they first met, and, like, I'm pretty sure that they kissed, if I'm gonna be honest.
No doubt. Even going back a bit earlier, so people know Luigi Russolo, the Italian futurist, for his intona rumori, which were these instruments made to mimic natural sounds like gurgling, clanging, stuff like that. But what most people don't realize is that John Sage, way before Luigi Russolo, he made much of his music by crashing horse carriages into the river in order to mimic the natural sounds of clanging by using, well, natural parts of the environment.
Yeah, no, actually he is recorded to have 2 horse deaths under his belt by pushing these different horses in horse carriages into the rivers to get that recording, that crisp, clean, thanks!
I'm glad they finally found those sound archives. They've been lost for years in a London sewer. No one knows how they got there. Perhaps John Sage tried to put them there so they would be forgotten, but the fact that he put them in a part where they would specifically be above the water suggests that he wanted them to be found.
You know who he didn't want people to find out about?
Who?
His first wife, Yamaha. Yamaha, can we just talk about how much of an insane fucking bitch she was? Dude, I'm so glad that she met her demise when she did, because I don't think I'd be a John Sage fan if she stuck around with him. But yeah, no, Yamaha got kicked out really early in John Sage's love life, and it just made it way better for the future with Victoria and everything, yeah. Who gives a shit? It's fucking Yamaha. No one actually cares about Yamaha and the John Sage story. They're like, ugh.
I know, it's such a sad time in his life. It's unfortunate that Yamaha was there for... she was with them for, yeah, like you said, only a little bit, but...
Like 5-ish years.
Yeah, but it was still a crazy time. In the John Sage diaries, he writes of her screaming obsessively in the next room, and he does mark this as being influential to some of his future works, but at the same time, in these diaries, he also mentions how horrifying it was to hear when he was trying to compose some of his more subtle pieces.
But basically, I think John Sage's most docile and calm piece, yeah, it was Out of My Deathbed, but that was like near the end of his life. Yeah, it still had a fair bit of screaming, as he was known for at the time, because everyone loved John Sage's screaming. There was no bad critics about it, right?
Actually, there were a few people who criticized
Shut up! Shut up! No bad critics.
I also heard that Jonathan Kaga's prepared piano was directly influenced by the fact that one of Sage's most notable performances include him sawing a piano in half.
Above a ledge, no doubt, right?
Oh yes, above a ledge as well. He wanted to add a dramatic visual performance aspect to it as well, which is why he did it on said ledge. People were horrified, like people were in the streets looking up at it, people just couldn't understand what the hell was going on.
There was this one poor soul, actually, that when John was sawing this Yamaha he had in half, was walking below him on top of this apartment building, and that poor woman was his first wife. Well, you know it was way better for him, though. His second wife, Victoria. You know, after his first wife, Yamaha, died, John Sage got really, really into alcohol, so much so that he stopped composing for a few years, right?
Yes, I think I did hear about this dark point in his life.
Yeah, no. But luckily he was brought out of it by this girl named Victoria when he threw one of his empty beer bottles at her 5-year-old son, which was the same age, was actually born the day that Yamaha died, he threw this bottle at this child named Victor, and his mom, Victoria, was like, "Hey, stop that! You stupid bitch!" at John Sage, and he was like, "Oh, that voice, it's wonderful." And that gave him the inspiration to make 344, actually, meeting his second wife, Victoria, and Victor, and Victoria yelling at him.
Oh, yes.
A really funny story, actually, in retrospect, right?
Yes, it is very interesting to see how inspiration can truly strike from anywhere, including someone yelling at a 5-year-old child and smacking them with a beer can.
It's not fair that Kaga is so much more respected. I think we should talk to R.A. Maddie about it and have a John Sage Appreciation Fest on the quad.
Yeah, I'm not sure people are quite ready for the brilliance of John Sage just yet. I mean, I do love this campus. It's a lot of wonderful people, but I don't know. It just seems just a little bit too intense for art school, just a little bit too weird, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, a bit too. Nah, I don't. Fuck off, CC. I'm kicking you off the podcast, alright? Alright, Maddie, so you know that one time that I, broke up the fight in the quad that was happening, and you said, "Oh, thanks, you owe me a favor"?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, you know how I also initiated that fight?
Wasn't aware of that.
Then don't, actually. So, I need that favor repaid here and now, as soon as possible.
I'll try my best.
Okay, so, have you heard about John Sage?
No, I haven't.
Right here is where I explained to Maddie who John Sage was for 30 minutes straight.
Very cool.
And you know that Jonathan Kaga is literally the worst then too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, I was thinking that, for my favor, I need an event on the quad in this freezing cold winter where we gather many people and we all listen to John Sage's 344.
Oh.
Here, wait, if you're not sold, can I just play it for you really quickly?
Yeah.
This is where I play R.A. Maddie, John Sage's 344. So what did you think about that?
I have no thoughts.
It was just that good?
I'm just stunned, I think.
In a good way?
I don't... sure.
Yay! Yeah, so we can do the event then?
No.
No, you said you owe me a favor, and I want to do this event.
Yeah, I know.
You have the power, and I request it as a favor. You have to do it.
However, I don't know.
Do it. Submit to peer pressure. Do it, please, for me. Please.
We could do a program about, how peer pressure is bad.
We could. Or we could do a program on why John Sage is awesome and have everyone listen to 344. Come on, Maddie, please.
Come on.
Please.
I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know.
John Sage isn't Jesus.
But is he God?
In my eyes, he could kill God.
Doesn't that make him the same? If he has the power to kill God, doesn't that make him God?
You just answered your own question, didn't you?
I don't know.
Maddie, I'm getting down on my hands and knees. Please, let there be a John Sage event.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Hey, so yeah, thank you for coming to this event, even though it's snowy and windy and cold. You guys really like John Sage 344, right?
No. It was bad. It was really bad. It was shit.
I mean, who performed that piece, that recording of John Sage 344?
3 homeless men?
Okay, well, did they get paid?
Barely. John Sage wasn't known for his acts of kindness.
Clearly.
Yeah, making that was not an act of
That
kindness.
was
just
an
music
act
as a
against
genre.
humanity.
From an analytical musicality, everything. Nothing
Why
made
did you
sense.
guys come to this event if you didn't like John Sage?
We were here to experience John Sage for the first time, I believe.
I did not like that.
It's good. But you're supposed to.
No.
It's good.
But shit. It's shit.
No.
What was wrong about 344?
344, it was obnoxious. There was a lot of screaming. It went on for too long. Too much screaming. Too much random noise. It did not add any value to my life. It was a negative experience.
But it added value.
Well,
to
your
my
life is shit.
Sharing it adds value to my life too.
Well, I'm sorry, but it did not add any value to my life. I don't know how it adds value to your life.
If it added value to your life,
You need to go to
look at your
therapy.
situation. It went on for too long. I could see the abstract experimental approach if it wasn't as long. It was way too fucking long. Could have ended at like 30 seconds even.
It's just really good. It's really fun music. It was.
How is that
releases
fun?
Dopamine.
How?
Lets it out.
How? That was so fucking bad.
Genuine.
That was genuinely really fucking bad.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
That was really fucking
I'm afraid
bad.
it was actually.
It was. It was really, really bad. Why'd you show it to me? I think I've lost a few years off my life.
You did this entire event just to show us this
Good.
shit? It's really, you can't just keep on saying that it's good and then that's gonna like magically convince us. It's not gonna fucking work. You may as well just give up. We're just gonna
I
leave.
can show you more, John Sage.
No. I'm gonna go listen to Kanye.
I'm gonna go listen to 100 Gex and cry now.
100 Gex? Yeah, that's fair. It's John Sage.
I swear to God, if you mention John, I'm gonna
Gex is
fucking
influenced by
strangle
John
you,
Sage.
bitch.
This is where I started to run away from the two guests that attended my event. I later returned to grab my audio equipment, only to find the SD card left. I learned a lot from this, and I learned that John Sage isn't ready to be accepted by the general public, even though he's obviously the best producer ever. And the thing is, I still love John Sage, and I love John Sage deeply. John Sage inspires me to do better and better and better than I ever have before, and he's always just been there for me when I needed to cry, needed to yell, needed anything. John Sage's music inspired me so much. And I don't care if other people don't like him, because I do. That's what really matters. John Sage, if you're listening to this post-mortem, I love you.
And we love you, Marcy. Thank you for sharing. That concludes our podcasting Core 2015 final presentation, symposium, showcase, stream, thing, whatever. That's it for tonight. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in, and stay tuned for the next time we do this class, next year's class, doing this all over again. All right, have a good night.